Guys, this is PC Guy, and today I'll be showing you how to install an SSD in your computer. This is going to be mostly about the hardware installation, but if some problems arise, as in the computer detecting the SSD afterwards, I will show you as well. If that does not happen, then well, yeah, not much I can show you then, but it can happen, but they are also easily solved issues, and if there are questions or if there are problems that someone has, I'll be open to looking for a solution for you and letting you know how to solve it, because it usually is quite easy. Now, this is the SSD that I'll be installing, an 860 EVO. It's a SATA SSD. Any computer can use one of these. You don't need a specific motherboard or anything like that. It's just a SATA connection and a SATA power plug. It's a lot faster than the normal HDD, so I would recommend anyone that does not have an SSD at all to get one. Either this brand, does not matter the brand, does not matter the model, they are all a lot faster than normal HDDs. And I will be this time installing it on the other computer, so this time it's actually in a case, so it's an actual good tutorial for people that do not know how to do it, as opposed to my installing it on my desk, which is usually where I show stuff. So in this case, it's a good learning opportunity. Now, without further ado, I will get started and show you guys how to do it.
Now let's start with the basics. Excuse the wiring mess, because there's a few unused wires that I have to clean up in here. But starting with the basics, let's start by unplugging the power cable, and just to be safe, the monitor cable, just so that you don't have to worry about any possible electricity coming through. And you should do this to any computer upgrade that you do. Just unplug it completely from the power. Unplugging it from the rest might be unnecessary, because there's no power coming in from the mouse, keyboard, etc. So you don't have to worry about that. Following up, remove the screws taking off the cover of your case. Make sure to keep them in a safe place so that you don't accidentally lose them. And let's see what we need. First of all, you're going to need a SATA cable. Those are sometimes not included with the PSU, with the SSD that you buy. They look like this, and you have several variations. They can be straight like the one I just showed you. They can be angled connectors like the one I just showed you as well. And you have to probably get them separately, because sometimes the SSDs do not come with it. Like as you see, this one I will actually show you. This one literally has only the SSD in here. I will double check, but I don't think it even comes. That was just the paper. But as you can see, it does not even bring the screws to fasten it. So you might actually need also to get the screws to fasten it on the side. Now, some cases have hard drive cages with their own fasteners to keep the thing together. This one, as you can see, does not. You have to put an actual screw in there to screw it together. So I'm going to grab a screw real quick. Now let's start by putting the SSD in place. Make sure that the side with the connectors is accessible to actually connect it to the power supply and to the motherboard. And in this case I have a free SSD cage here. I already have a smaller SSD that is full, and that is why I'm upgrading it to this bigger SSD, and I have an extra cage here. As you can see, they're smaller than the hard drive cages. They are 2.5-inch cages, and luckily I have a free slot. Now this is quite a tight fit. I did not build this computer myself, so the cable management is a bit horrendous, but you just have to somehow slide it in place until the screw holes actually line up, as you can see, and then you can actually put the screws there. Now I cannot really show you myself putting the screws because I have to be holding the phone to record it, but you know, it's putting screws in holes, so how difficult can it be, right? Now the screws are safely tightened in place. To the other side or not, depends on your case and if you really want it fastened or not. And as you can see, the power connector is on the far side, The data connector is on this side, and it is a SATA power cable and SATA cable, and the power cable looks like this one. Usually there's 4 in a row in one cable, so I just have to find the empty one that actually can reach the SSD, and then I can safely connect it. Now, making sure that the pin matches, it will have to be with this little part facing downwards to your right side. So you have to kind of wiggle it in there in a way that it will actually fit, which in this case it's a tight fit, and you might have to do some acrobatics to get there. Okay, after a lot of gymnastics and cable twisting, I think I managed to get it mostly into position. I apologize once again for the crappy filming. And just a little bit more to the side. And okay, after a lot of struggling, the power connector is finally in. This was not the most gracious video, but there it is. The power connector is finally in tight. Make sure it plugs in all the way, otherwise your drive will not be receiving any power and you can't do anything with it. Now for the SATA cable. SATA cable, in this case I think it might be wiser to use the angled connector to be able to get it in there, and just like the SATA cable, it has a little let's say thingy on the bottom side. This has to be on your left side, so basically it plugs in like this into the receptacle, let's call it there. Now, where is the other end of the cable? It will plug in to one of the, let's find, there. I might actually have to take off the other panel. Now, after removing the back panel, I can actually see why the cable management was so tricky on this case when it was first built, because as you can probably see, none of the cable routing holes are actually easily accessible. So this case actually has a very difficult and annoying design to it when it comes to cable management. Now, as you can see, here are the SATA ports, and luckily I have one free, so that's what I will be using for this hard drive. Now you can go ahead, grab the linear end, which is the only one that will fit. There's no way I could fit an angled one here. So grab the linear end, make sure that the pluggy bit is downwards, so in this position, and plug it into that SATA port there. Now, with the SATA cable plugged into position, you can route the rest of the cable to where your hard drive will be. And yes, it is tricky in this case because of the cable mess, but let's get it on the other side there. Now that we're back on this side of the case, here you have your SATA cable, and there you have your SATA data port. Again, make sure it lines in correctly, and simply plug it in there. It's in place, make sure it plugs in all the way, you hear a little click, and it is actually plugged in. Now, this is not the best example because the case space is kind of cramped and messy, but like I said, this is not my PC and not my case, so yeah, this is what I have to do here, not the cable management part. Now you feel free to close it up and start it up to see if it works. Now, as you can see, the 250GB SSD I just installed is not really showing on the drive list. It's there, but it's just not being recognized by the system yet. I'll show you guys how to fix it if this happens. Now, what you are looking for is disk management. Just type it on the search bar, although you might have to search for create and format hard drive partitions for it to show up. So it would be this option here. Sorry that it's not in English. So that should be the option that we need. Now, as you can see, it is asking to initialize that drive. Now, just go here and let us look for drive 0. As you can see, 232GB online. It does not have a letter assigned. So let's start on creating a new volume. The volume will be the maximum amount that you can see, that is the space available on the hard drive. You just want to make one partition for the hard drive, not divide it. So next, now you assigned it a letter. It's not really important which it is, but let's call it I. You can leave all of this stuff on normal. This is just the standard settings. You can give it a name. I will call it 250 gigabytes SSD, and it is an Evo 860. Just so we know which one we are looking for. Now let's see, complete. And there it is. As you saw, it has appeared here on the list, and it should now appear here, as you can see. There is your new SSD installed and ready to go. Sorry for this part being in Dutch, but that's the system language on this Windows PC. Now, you might not have this problem at all, but most likely you will have to do this as well when you install the SSD. So remember, disk management, find the drive you need, and you need to well, format and make a partition of it.
So yeah, and that's it. It's pretty simple. All you need really is a screwdriver if your case does not have a special holding thingy for the mounts. If it does, you might not even need a screwdriver. It's up to you. If your case does not have a SSD holding cage, the SSD does not have moving mechanical parts. So if your PC is just sitting there in its corner, not being moved around, you could technically safely have the SSD just lying on top of the HDD cage or at the bottom or something. It could just be lying there and it's not going to malfunction or anything because of not being fastened properly. It's not ideal, but if you have to, that's also fine. Anyway, I hope you guys have learned how to put in an SSD through this tutorial if you didn't know how to and needed to. Hope it has been helpful. This was Active PC Guy, and I'll see you next time.